Oh, oh man alive. Come in, everybody. Come in. Get yourself settled. That was my team sheet. Well, that's my team sheet now. Team sheet's here. The team sheet is here. It's always in its own. Right. Come in, everybody. Hello. Let's talk about the game then. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about the game, and then at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about some other stuff as well. With regards to Derby not taking a knee anymore, with regards to what this means, some of my thoughts on that. Maybe, try and educate, try and get a big conversation going. I will let you all know when I'm going into that bit. So if you don't want to stick around for it, you don't have to. But if you want to stick around for it, much like the Millwall game, you're free to. But please, no rudeness in the comments. Because at that point, you're making a choice to stick around when you don't have to. So let's just respect each other a little bit in that vibe, okay? Okay, the game. I think overall a pretty lackluster performance. Rooney said at the end of the game that Derby didn't deserve anything out of the game. Felt that they were too passive. Felt that the mistake that led to the goal was maybe part of the reason that they went into their shell a little bit. Even Nav, I'll pick up on that in a minute, Joe. The reason that they went into their shell a little bit and stopped playing and stopped whizzing the ball around and those kind of things. I understand that, but this comes back to courage, comes back to bravery, comes back to leadership. You can't let those things, make you go into your shell, because we saw this a lot last season under Koku, in that when Derby conceded a goal through their own mistakes, that's when they went into their shell. That's when the bad things started to happen. Last season, Derby committed 10 errors that led to goals by Opta's metrics. 10 errors that led to goals. That's a lot. That's an awful lot. I haven't checked the metrics for this season. But if you think 10 times they've done something that has led to a goal, and then 10 times they've gone into their shell and kind of just gone, that's not good. You drop a lot of points that way, and Derby aren't in a position right now to drop a lot of points. They created a buffer, which has now been reduced to, I think, 5 points. And this is a big game against Barnsley, because you can go back to 8 again with the game in hand. You can go back to 8 again. So this is a big game in hand. There was a lot of frustration in the first half. I think we all felt that frustration in the first half, basically because when Derby were on the ball, Jason Knight was sort of drifting over to the left and Waghorn would drift in field, and he'd form a 2 with Kazim Richards, and you had Patrick Roberts on the right. So you basically had this 4-2-4 going on in terms of the shape. Now, it was a 4-3-3 generally, but when Knight would push up and Waghorn would drift in field, and you get a 4-2-4. That was to try and unsettle, I think, because Coventry had a back 5 out of possession going on in a back 3 when they were in it. That was to try and unsettle them. The problem that creates is, I think, when you turn the ball over very frequently, which I think Derby did a little bit too often, essentially you just have 3 versus 2 in the midfield in Coventry's favour. When 2 of those midfielders are Hamer and Matty James, when they're the 2 of the 3 midfielders in there, it's going to cause you some issues. They are 2 very, very accomplished midfielders. I really like Hamer. James is held in very high regard as well. They're 2 really good players. And you saw how quickly they broke at speed, at real speed. And then you had Darbo on the right. You had Darbo pushing up at right wing back. He was creating all that width, pushing Lee Buchanan back. And that created so many issues. Perfect example of this. Context a little skewed because Derby at this point were going for it, but the context, example of this was when Coventry hit the post. They go down the left, and then as quick as a hiccup, they shift the ball just horizontally across the field. Derby's block can't get across quick enough. They find the space, they hit the post. It's horrible to say, it was wonderful, because just like that, and the ball was gone. It moves from Darbo across, Hamer, he flicks it across, and before you know it, the ball, I don't know if Roos had that covered, but the speed at which Coventry moved that was really impressive, and Derby didn't really have that a lot. I thought Patrick Roberts in the first half was pretty bright. He had a couple of take-ons, couple of dribbles, which were really good. But he falls very much into, if all of Derby's wide players kind of fall into the same category of getting into good positions but not quite putting the ball in, or hesitating and things like that. It was a problem. Shout out to Lee Gregory. Thought he did some nice things when he came on. In fact, the first thing he did off a throw-in was pick the ball up and motor sort of 20 yards upfield. Now, the first tackle on him is clean as a whistle. I have no issue with that. The second one on him, I think, just a little bit naughty. Because I think the Coventry guy knows what he's doing, and he absolutely cleans Gregory out from side. I don't think Gregory sees him coming. And there's no free kick given for that, which I thought was a foul. I know the ball had gone and the first tackle was clean, but I mean that was pretty bad. That was pretty nasty. Louis Watson, shout out to Louis Watson. He's making a big case to start against Barnsley. I know some of you will have mentioned him in the comments, and I'll get to those. But when he came on, another player picks the ball up. He plays with a fearlessness that when Bird and Sibley got in the team, they played with. In terms of, he just picks the ball up, he sees forwards, he wants to go forwards, he wants to play the ball forwards, lots of energy, lots of zip and sharpness in his passes, and as a result, the players around him were sharper, they were more zip in their passes. He was really good, really encouraging. Him and Max Bird, I'm convinced, are the same person. They look exactly alike. There is no difference with the Alice band and the hair flopping around, and they're quite tall, lanky lads, and yeah. Louis Watson, really good. Shout out to him. He looks exciting. He looks talented. Thought Colin had a bit of an off game by his standards that have been lofty of late. Now, I don't think he was bad, but I thought a couple of times with the hold-up play, he didn't quite the ball wouldn't quite sit down for him. And I think also he was affected by, again, this was a byproduct of, I think, having Knight sort of drift to the left, is when you drop deep and chest it down, and you don't really have the runners around you, you've only got maybe one or two, because you can't have both midfielders go because you need one to sit. Didn't really have the runners, but I thought in general, he was spotty at best. And I think that was, I agreed with Rooney's assessment that I don't believe Derby deserved to win that game. I can't think of the time they really tested Wilson in the goal there. They had a couple of moments which were okay, better in the second half. I thought they were better in the second half, and when they're throwing the kitchen sink at Coventry, it's good that they showed an attacking endeavour, but it's bad that came in the last sort of 10 minutes of the game. Overall, I think that's the assessment of the game. We'll get to your comments. Watson, the new Will Hughes. It's a big comparison to make, Joe. I don't want to make that after Watson has only come off the bench a couple of times, because we fall into this trap a lot. Max Bird is having a period where he's sort of dipped by the standards that he set when he first came in the team. Look, these are really young lads, and playing in a team that isn't doing well right now, it's easy to put them up here because the rest of the guys are down here right now. But it's tough. Look, he's playing well. That's a good thing. He's playing well in limited minutes. He's certainly pushing for a start. That's a great thing. We hope to see more of it over a big body of work. Let's see what he develops into, what he turns into. Once he gets a consistent season under his belt, or a season consistently around the first team under his belt, let's see what he develops into. It's worrying when we all knew a reaction from midweek was required and they gave a nothing performance. Chris. It's strange, isn't it? Because they certainly weren't as bad as they were the other week, which is good. But then had they been equally as poor, then you kind of go, oh boy. Rooney said it himself. They're in a slump right now, a mini slump he called it. They are. I think 1 win in 5. That win was against Huddersfield. 1 win in 5. They were unlucky against Watford, maybe to not get a point out of that. Against Forest, they were lucky to get a point out of it. Sorry, mine's frazzled. But yeah, they're in a mini slump, winless in their last 3. Big games coming up. I think the saving grace is, in terms of fixtures upcoming, you look at Norwich, Brentford and Swansea. I think they're the only 3 to kind of look at and go, ooh. the rest of them, you're looking at like Preston or, Reading, a pretty efficient team, actually. Luton. So there are teams in there that you look at and think, yeah, we can get points out of that. But yeah, I think it is a slight concern that it's a run that has now dragged them, back into the relegation dogfight. How come Beningame wasn't in the side after one of the better performances from the week? I honestly don't know. He was there today as the 19th man. I assume had one of the loanees pulled up with an injury pre-game, he'd have gone in the squad. So he was obviously fit enough to be considered. I think he's unlucky in many ways in that he's not played a lot of games at Everton, so his fitness needs to come up. But I also think that midfield, in terms of Shinnie, Bird and Knight, we know how much Rooney thinks of Max Bird. We know how much he likes Max Bird. So I think that loyalty to Max will... I'm not going to say keep Max in the team despite his form, because I actually don't think Max has played bad. I think defensively he's been pretty good. So yeah, I think it's hard to break up that midfield three as well. But I have a little bit of sympathy for Beningame because I thought he was one of Derby's better players against Cardiff. We do pass the ball across the goal quite regularly, and it always struck me as yeah, Gracie. That's interesting because under Philip, they did that quite a lot, and this is where the 10 mistakes that led to goals came from often. There was the Forest game was that October, where Bogle passes it across the box, Grab and fires it in. There was the Wednesday game at Pride Park, similar sort of thing, where it goes across the box, and I think it's I can't remember who scored it that time, and it goes in. So they have a tendency to play those square balls a lot. It's a tendency that I think they need to get out of. I think it's something they've got better at, but I'd be happy if it just wasn't there at all. I think the leadership is what we're missing on the pitch. Lots of bit. To be fair, Kazim Richards is a great leader. Wisdom's a really, really good leader. Rooney's spoken to his leadership recently. You look at Jason Knight, for one so young, is a really, really good leader. I think overall this team needs a bit more experience and a bit more leadership, because it is, relatively speaking, a young squad. Graham Shinnie, he's another example of a midfield, of a player who's been around the block a little bit. But when you miss Curtis Davis, when David Marshall's out, these are guys that you're going to miss for their experience. But I think, I think it's leadership. They miss some of it, but they do have some of it out on the pitch as well. Evening, Ryan. Feeling pretty bad about the Rams right now. Can we get 2 positives to outweigh the negatives? Tom, you want 2 positives? Okay. You want 2 of them. Louis Watson, as we've already discussed, Louis Watson, he's a positive. I think a positive. I think this is something that we've spoken to a lot recently. The Wickham game, the Forest game. Derby managed to stay in the game when conceivably they could have been out of it. Coventry had chances to make it 2-0, and Derby could have been out of the game before half time, and they could have been out of the game on that counter attack where they hit the post when Derby were pushing to get the equaliser. Now that's a little bit of luck, but they stayed in the game. As long as you stay in the game at 1-0, you'll snatch a point wherever they come. Now you might go, well, that's a rubbish positive because they were crap, but they're going to need to pick up ugly points in these, 12 games, 11 games left. They're going to need to pick up some ugly points. So they're going to have to keep on displaying that quality, because they're going to go through patches in these next 12 games where they are going to be under the cosh and not be at their best and have to huff and puff a little bit. If they can stay in games and just be sharper at the other end of the pitch, then, because what you don't want to do is be sharper at the other end of the pitch, but be yellow-bellied at the defensive end where you concede more. So if they can stay in games, they'll be fine, and I think they are going to be fine. This is a mini slump, but I think they are going to be fine. First half, I think Rooney, the team wrong night, Waghorn ineffective. Nav, you're getting in here a lot. I'm going down the mall tonight, but I honestly don't think the team was wrong, to be honest. Tactically, maybe pushing Knight up wide, but then if you've got 3 versus 5, I can see maybe why you push Knight up there. The problem is the turnover of possession. What Rooney can say, right, when we turn the ball over, Knight, you drop. But he's not in control of how regularly Derby give the ball away, and they gave it away too often, too easily. So I kind of agree with them pushing Knight over that side, having Wycombe drift in field and having three centre-backs try and deal with Kazim Richardson. And Wycombe kind of get that and try and overload the left on that side with Buchanan and Knight. And the problem was they executed it so poorly. They kept turning the ball over really, really quickly. And Darboe, as Tom has alluded to, was very good. He was just up and down that right flank, causing so many issues. So I don't think the team was wrong. I don't even necessarily think tactically there was anything that you can go, it was garbage. I just think the execution was pretty poor. Thought Roberts and Bird were the only two players in the first half that deserved credit. Only Watson gets credit in the second half. Yeah, Tom, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And I feel for Nathan Byrne. He's been one of Derby's best players this season, and that's going to happen to you, man. And Rooney has said that. He said he can live with mistakes because mistakes happen in football. Derby should be able to, because they're good players. They should be able to get themselves back in the game with so much of the game still left to play. You can live with mistakes at football if your players are trying to be courageous. Now, I think that was a bad pass from Byrne. I don't think it was a sort of courageous decision he was making, but mistakes happen, but when you're at the wrong end of the table, you can't have a lot of them happen, or if they do happen, that's you need a response. Where are we? Any updates on the contracts for Wisdom? Any updates on Wisdom, Lawrence, and Wygon contracts? I think Lawrence's contract is up at the end of next year, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. Wisdom and Wygon. So far, nothing on those guys' contracts. I have a feeling Wycombe won't be at the club next year. Just think his performances this year, if he could flip his seasons and have the season he had last year this year, that's a much better, because to borrow an Americanism, a contract year, you really want to put your best stuff out on the field. And he's been inconsistent. He's been up and down. He's not been played in his favourite position a lot, but his goal return has also been spotty, particularly compared to last season when he still wasn't playing his preferred position a lot, but his goal return was still a lot better. So I think Wygon won't be at the club next year. Are we staying up, Ryan? Charlie? Yeah, I think so. I think they will. I think they'll be, and I don't only think there'll be three worse teams. I think Derby will pick up enough points along the way to secure their survival. This is a massive, massive summer coming up, though. Let's say they stay up. This summer is enormous. Arguably, contextually, the biggest summer they've had in maybe a decade, maybe. Because you have so many players out of contract. You'll have gone so close to that trapdoor. Will have gone, with financial problems and with contract problems, with so many loans coming in. Rooney now having one summer to build. It's a massive, massive summer. Performances are massive. Last one. This performances have massively dropped off over the last few games. Clean sheets have dried up, and we're just not creating anything. Gone back to ponderous passion about why. I think a lot of it, Ridley, is when you're at the bottom of the table, your confidence is fragile. So one negative result can turn into two quickly, can turn into three very quickly, and we know how snowball effect starts. That's how teams, that's how teams go down. That's how they go down. So that's just how it is, and then you revert back to your old tropes. You revert back to safe passes. You revert back to just being a little bit soft to and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Hi, when you're doing a long podcast, could listen to you all day. David, I agreed to do a podcast on, I think, Monday with a Rams handle that got in touch with me. I think they're dropping an announcement on it soon. They'll do that, but very excited to be part of that. I'm really sorry I can't remember the actual handle's name right now. My mind is frazzled. And hopefully, for the start of next season, we might have a podcast on The Athletic with myself and it's with you, Tom. It's with you, Tom. Tell the people in the comments that it's with you. I'm looking forward to it, my man. But yes, we've been talking about it for a long time. But hopefully, for the start of next season, myself and a former Derby player will be doing a regular podcast. Fingers crossed for that. I'm up for it. He's up for it. We've been pitching and been getting all our ideas together and stuff like that. And, we're close. We're really, really close. So we're hoping that a Derby podcast will be with you all shortly. Okay. On to some other things. Derby released a statement today. Sorry, at this point, I'm going to talk about some social justice stuff, some racism stuff, some taking the knee stuff. If you don't want to be here for that, that's fine. That's up to you. Completely get it. Sometimes you just want your football digest to be a football digest. Awesome. For those of you that are staying, I'm going to try and articulate some of my thoughts on what's happened, and all good. So at this point, if you're staying, feel free to chip in. But let's have some respect and stuff like that, and that can be all good. So wicked. Derby released a statement today saying they won't take a knee anymore, and instead they're going to stand along the touchline together as one. The idea was what Colin Kazim-Richards has been doing is that he stands proud, unashamed as a black person. Now, it wasn't his idea to do this. It was sort of a crowd-sourced idea between a meeting, but the idea was basically that they want to stand together as a unit, as one, as a show of solidarity. Now, some of you might ask, what's the difference between that gesture and taking a knee gesture? And the difference is they all wanted to do this. And also, they feel that taking a knee started to become a smokescreen for the lack of inaction that they were seeing across football. And I think the final straw was when Colin got racially abused after the Forest game, is that we're taking this knee, we're doing this thing, where but still, and yet this is still happening, and it's still happening too frequently, and it's every day now. Or you're seeing people get racially abused online. And I think Derby very much took the stance that QPR took, and what Wilfred Zaha had spoken about. I think was it ESPN? Forgive me if that's wrong, but Zaha had spoken about it, where he said it's just become something we do, and that was never the point of it. That was never ever the point of it. It was never meant to be something that we just did, and we assimilated it into our culture rather than looking at the problem, facing the problem, and going, "This is the problem. We need to tackle the problem. The problem is uncomfortable." What we did is we just normalized the problem. And I'm not saying I'm saying we as a society, we just normalize the problem. We roll out platitudes and banners and hashtags. And I think it watered everything down, because the way football interacts with racism is very differently to how sort of general society interacts with racism. So in which case, when you hear no room for racism, when you hear, the message is loud and clear, these are things that are never backed up with actions. Because your actions have to speak in terms of you need criminal charges and punishments for people committing these. Look at the young man that abused Ian Wright. The judge said that he didn't think that punishing him would achieve anything. How depressing is that? I mean, come on, man. But yet we're kneeling, right? So nothing is happening. Nothing. This isn't about this. Well, it is about the EFL. It is about the FA. It's about the PFA. It's about the Premier League. It's about individual clubs. It's about our society. And if our society is just going to go, nah, we're all right, actually, then at some point, clubs, people, not just football clubs, people are going to go, you know what? Fuck this. We'll do it ourselves. We'll just go and do it ourselves. Derby feel they have the right leadership in that building to think, you know what? We'll just do it ourselves. Fuck whatever you guys want to do, we'll just do it ourselves. They feel in that room, and I agree. I think they do as well. I think in someone in Rooney and Rosenior and Kazim-Richards, Andre Wisdom, even you look on, someone like Jason Knight, who's considered a leader in there. You look at Matt Clark in there, Nathan Burns' experience, David Marshall, Curtis Davis is still in and around the club. I think they do have, and that's just me naming players and coaching staff. There might be, there'll be loads of coaching staff behind the scenes that I'm sure they have a lot of confidence in. I'm just speaking about ones that I look at and think, yeah, you're kind of right. I know Kazim-Richards, sort of away from prying eyes, does a lot of stuff in London with his family to help stuff like this out anyway. That's something that, you don't really know about, probably because it's not talked about, because he just goes and does it. Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of stuff that they do. Liam Rosenior, always incredible on stuff like this. They want to do more stuff with the community trust. The community trust that was award winning, was it last year? They already do a lot. They want to do more with that. They want to educate and go into schools, and they want to teach Black history as opposing to stopping at racism. You want to teach Black history and stuff like that. That's the sort of stuff that you want to get right. And if the EFL are just going to go no, then Derby will go, All right, we'll do it. We'll do that behind our scenes, and on the pitch, they're going to continue to do that because they want to show some support. They want to show some support that, you know what, we still support an anti-race. We still support people not being racist because obviously we support each other. We support Colin and his kids. We support Andre and his family. We support Nathan and his family, and Curtis and his family, and, you know, Beningami and Mengi. And we support every single black fan that is in those stands and their families, and Liam. And they still want to do that as a group. They still want to stand together as a group. And the difference is this time it's their gesture. It's them saying, this is what we're doing. This is ours. And they're frustrated. They're upset. They're hurt. They're angry. And I get it. I definitely get it. Now, me, I have said before, and I've said on Twitter, and I said, I will always support taking a knee, because to me, you know, a knee dates back to the civil rights movement, which obviously was a very powerful time for black, very powerful time for black people all over the world. You know, that will always be something that I look at and think I'll always support that. But you know what? If you're going to look at it and think in 2021, we as a society have just assimilated it into the system, and it's just become another thing. You know, it's become clap for carers. You know, it's become, you know, whatever gesture you want to say it is. It's become something that you do with the smoke screen and pretenses of, hey, we're going to do something, but you ain't really going to do nothing. You're going to just, like, if it was up to a lot of people, they'd just have people take the knee forever and that'd be it. You know, they wouldn't solve stop and search numbers being 10 times higher for black people than it is for white people. They wouldn't solve, therefore, jail sentences being higher for black people than they are for white people. They wouldn't solve police brutality. They wouldn't solve, you know, in terms of opportunities, well, across the board at the top of businesses, not being created for minorities. They wouldn't solve stuff like that. And look, this is not me saying that no black person has ever committed a crime, or no black person or no white person has ever been the target of police brutality. That is not what I'm saying. Of course they have. Of course they have. What I'm saying is it is disproportionate. That is not equality. Equality is no black person never going to jail, right? That's not equality. Equality is about proportions. You have to be proportionate with it. And right now in our society, I think it's fair to say it is not proportionate. You know, take all of your studies that get released. Yeah, sorry, I was just reading a comment in there. I'll pick up on those two in a minute. You know, you look at these studies that get released, stop and search numbers 10 times, black people 10 times more likely to be stopped and searched for drugs than white people. If that is the case, me and all of you go for a job, right? Me and all of you go for a job, and my application gets looked over 10 times, and all yours gets looked over once. Do you reckon that? Would you call that fair? Who do you reckon is going to have more holes picked in their application or their work? It's going to be me, just by virtue that 10 people look at it, or, you know, set of eyes going over it, or the same set of eyes 10 times. That's not equality. You know, you can break it down on that kind of level. So by virtue, you know, I'm not going to get the job because people had 9 more opportunities to pick holes in my work on my application than they did at yours. You know, so it's about proportions. We have to be proportionate. You know, we have to hold each and every one of us to account, and it starts with all of us. But we need our government as well to do it. You know, it kind of makes me sick when, you know, an elected government official sneers on TV asking if the knee originated with Game of Thrones. That is insulting to so many people. That is insulting to an entire generation of people that suffered, that didn't have rights, that died for rights. It spits on everything they ever worked towards. And that's an elected official. Hey, buddy, fuck you. Now, that's unprofessional of me, but I'm kind of passionate about that stuff. For me, I support whatever the club and players decide to do. The most disappointing thing that on the posts on Facebook about CKR getting racially abused was for... Right, okay, yes, this was the comment I wanted to pick up on. Black Lives Matter, the official movement. Let's talk about the Black Lives Matter official movement. You can take a knee and not associate yourself with the official Black Lives Matter movement. I don't agree with everything that movement does. You can go over here, you know, you can say, hey, I support. Do you know what? Some of those things that they do, I support that. Do you know some of the other things they do? Kind of not comfortable with that. But here, this is like the Millwall thing. The Millwall fans booed, and then some people came to the defense saying they were booing a Marxist organization that was the Black Lives Matter organization. You only know that they were booing that if you went and A, quizzed all those Millwall fans, and I doubt they're all experts on Marxism. But B, you projected that those footballers support the official Black Lives Matter movement. Unless every single person goes down there and asks every single football player that takes a knee, do you support the official Black Lives Matter movement? You actually have no idea if they support it or not. You just project that they do. And therefore, what you are booing becomes very, very troublesome because you don't know. You're assuming, you're projecting. Okay? Imagine if I did that. Imagine in the counter protests to the Black Lives Matter protests, I projected that all those people that were racist. People would rightly have an issue with that because I don't know that. Okay? Again, it's about proportion. It's about framing. You can support this thing over here. This, social justice and anti-racism, and use the knee, which was a civil rights thing originally, not a Black Lives Matter thing. You can support that over there, and you can be like, I don't support this political party. I don't want to go over here. You can do both. You type in on Google the history of taking a knee, you will see plethoras of articles that actually date back to Colin Kaepernick in 2016. That's concerning. It tells me that there's a lot of education that needs to go on. That is concerning because it didn't originate there. In a sporting context, sure, but he took it from another context. He took it from another period in history. So we need to get better at this. All of us. I always try. Look, I'm not perfect. But I always try, and that's all I can do. Right? That's all I can do. Right? I've got a lot of shit tonight because of the stuff that I posted about the piece that I read. Thank you, Charlie, who shouted out my piece. I thank you, appreciate that, man. I got a lot of shit for that today. A lot of shit for showing the photograph of the Derby fans standing. Even got shit for showing a packed director's box, which I thought was ridiculous. So, look, it bums me out. It annoys me. It hurts me. It upsets me. But that's where we are. Look, enjoy your Saturday night. Enjoy your Sunday. Be kind to each other, man. Be kind to each other out there because it's a tough world out there and people are struggling, not just with racism. People are struggling with losing loved ones to the pandemic, losing loved ones to all sorts of things. People are struggling to pay bills. People are struggling with relationships. People are struggling with people are struggling with everything, losing their pets and all sorts of stuff like that. Just try and be kind to someone. Enjoy your Saturday night, folks. And we'll be back real soon. We're back with another one of these after the Barnsley game. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for those that stuck around for this. Love you all. Bye.